Economic Development and Tourism Committee meeting today. Thank you for coming. Again, for those of you that come in, please try to spread out a little as you can, or hold your breath, one or the other. Just we don't want to spread anything. I want to welcome our new members to the committee today. So if you don't mind, if you'll press your button when I call your name, and just tell us where you're from so that we can, the members that have been here since eons can learn you a little bit. I'm going to start with Eric Allen. Eric, would you press your button if you're here? Oh, you know what? Stand up, Eric. I know who you are. You've been here. Eric's been in the legislature for years now, and he's just on the best committee. So.
I know, right? It is my first year on this committee, but Eric Allen representing House District 40, which includes portions of Cobb, Fulton, Atlanta, Smyrna, Miami.
Thank you, Eric. Becky Evans. I want to welcome you to the committee, Becky. Stan Gunner. What number? Well, you don't have a number. Doesn't matter.
I represent the 8th district that's in Northeast Georgia, Rabun Towns Union, and part of White County. And this is my first time in a session anywhere. So as a representative.
Appreciate it very much. Down from Savannah, Derek Marlowe. What number are you, Derek? There you go.
Representative Derek Mallow from House District 163 in Savannah, part of the Chatham delegation, and I am succeeding the Honorable J. Craig Gordon as his successor on this committee.
Thank you, Derek, and also Yasmin Neal. Are you here? A new member, Mary Robichaud. Where is she at?
Chairman.
Oh, she's virtual. Okay, well, there she is. I'm sorry, Mary, you did tell me you were going to be virtual, so welcome, by the way. And Mary is a fellow yachtsman. She gets out on her boat as much as I do. So welcome. Camilla Hobson, are you here or are you virtual? Number 10. You have the floor.
Okay. I am Camilla Hobson. I am from Albany, Georgia, Dougherty County, and that's District 153.
Good, welcome. Zulma Lopez. And she is online.
Thank you.
Hello, Zulma,
Thank
welcome.
you, Mr. Sherman.
Welcome
Thank
to the
you.
committee. I can tell you to all of our new members, this committee is where all the fun is. We typically off session go around and see the very best of the state. And except for today, we have things that there's never any controversy about. We typically do things that are really fun for the state. They typically roll out the red carpet for us, and they want us to see the best of our state. And speaking of a bill, there is a bill that we want to hear today. And before we do that, is there any member on committee that would like to say anything before we get started? If not, we're going to hear House Bill 86 today. And, oh, I'm sorry. Thank you very much, Chairman. We need to approve our rules. If you guys would look, ladies and gentlemen, if you'll look at your rules. And this is the same, except for number 6, we added a voice vote, which you cannot do, of course, with a Zoom, so that's insignificant. But it's the same rules, except for that we had last year. And once you read the rules, I'll give you a chance to see those, and then I'll accept a motion. Okay. I will point out number 15, that any member that wishes to present a substitute to a bill resolution must provide the substitute to the chairman, administrative assistant, chairman, policy analyst assigned to the committee at least a day ahead of time to give us an opportunity to see those. Number 8. Did you press your button? No? Okay. Thank you. Y'all excuse us a second. We're making sure that all of our Zoom people are hooked into us as well. Chairman Nix, you're recognized.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we adopt these rules for the committee for this session.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of adopting the rules for this 2-year term will say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed. Roy, why are you shaking your head? You're out there just shaking your, oh, okay. I thought you were voting for somebody. That's- Yes, sir. Thank you so much, Roy. Ladies and gentlemen, is there anything else? We're going to move on to the bill that we're going to hear today, and I am going to turn it over to the chairman to run the committee, and I'll present from the podium.
All right, well, Mr. Chairman, thank you for the opportunity to consider this legislation in front of you. Committee members, you have House Bill 86, and we're working from LC 3645551S. So that should be the version you have in front of you. And with no further ado, Mr. Chairman, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, members. And thank you again for taking the time to be today. There's a reason this particular bill, House Bill 86, wound up in the Economic Development and Tourism Committee today. And it's because of the massive economic power that for those that are requesting this bill, and they are a coalition for the first time, these economic engines of the Atlanta Braves, the Atlanta Falcons, the Atlanta Hawks, and the Atlanta United, all of which came together to ask us to plead with us for this bill. As you might know, some of the side effects of COVID has been that we haven't been able to fill our stadiums. And as you also know, we've got 2 brand new stadiums that are attracting large crowds, which we cannot do today. So we've asked the Braves, and they're about to go into spring training again and maybe do this all over again. They had a large financial loss last year, but they appeased us and they came and they played because for a year now, going on a year, we've had our constituents that have been closed up, and some of our family members we've lost family members. So they're coming today to ask for this particular bill, and it has been researched, ladies and gentlemen, and I hope that by the end of the day, once we present this, that you can support it. What the bill will do, let me move over. I'll start by telling you that it's estimated that about 2.2 million of your constituents in Georgia today place sports bets, and they place them offshore at about $4.8 billion. And I'll say that again, about $4.8 billion in illegal sports wagers. Georgia's legalized online sports betting. Most people would favor to legalize it so that we can legitimize it, if you will, through the lottery, just as we do with any other lottery game. It would create about $433 million in gross receipts from sports, and it would put about $43 million into our Hope Scholarship and roll it in exactly the way that it is today, just like any other game. Again, I'll call your attention to 4 people that have endorsed this bill. Derek Schiller, who's the president of the Atlanta Braves, Rich McKay, the CEO of the Atlanta Falcons, Steve Koonin with the Atlanta Hawks, and Daryl Eels with Atlanta United. Let me go to some of the talking points, and these are in your packet as well. For the first time, again, as I said, we have all 4 major league teams that are endorsing a bill, and they're standing behind it. This is the first time ever this has happened, and they partnered. Currently, we've got 23 states that are either legalized sports betting or are pending. Experts say that within the next 3 years, we're going to have a total of 40 states. Why? Because the NFL, the NBA, all the major league organizations are behind this. Why do they want this? That's the next question, and I've got this a couple of times. It's for fan participation. As I said earlier, the stands are empty. And of course, these are major losses for these folks that are continuing to try to play. They believe that fan engagement is what sports betting is all about. And so if you're going to do it offshore, why don't we collect the revenue here in Georgia and standardize it? The partnership will generate has generated billions of dollars in our economy. The partnership, directly or indirectly, employs tens of thousands of people in your districts. Tennessee, our neighboring state, is the one that passed sports betting most recently. And in the first month alone, it generated an astounding $131 million. Keep in mind, Georgia is much bigger, a larger population than Indiana or Tennessee. And by the way, Indiana just passed $1 billion in its sports betting revenues. What are the general provisions? It authorizes the Georgia Lottery, the current mechanism, to manage online sports wagering. The revenues are going to go to Hope, directly to Hope in the current education process. It provides for bettors to restrict themselves from placing certain wages. In other words, this bill says you can only place a sports bet with a debit card. You will not be able to use a credit card. And you can see the benefits there, I'm sure. Provides for resources for individuals with gambling problems. That's in the bill. It provides that the Georgia Lottery issue no fewer than 6 licenses to qualified applicants, and those people that already do it, the FanDuels and on and on and on. So minimum of 6 licenses. And the integrity, that's really the selling point of this thing, is the integrity of this program. It prohibits wagering on credit. You will not be able to use a credit card. It prohibits anyone from 21 years of age from placing a bet. It prohibits wagering on collegiate sports. This bill today, and I'm not talking about the Senate bill that's coming over, this bill today only applies to our pro sports teams. It prohibits wagering on injuries, penalties, and other types of wagering that are contrary to public policy and unfair to the bettors. It prohibits certain bets that posed outsized integrity risks. It requires the sharing of annotated bet level data with the leagues for integrity monitoring purposes. You're going to have to get the data from the league if you're a vendor. It requires operators to use reasonable efforts to prohibit league and team insiders from betting on sports. That may be one of the biggest pieces of the bill. I'm going to ask Chris Hopper to step up here beside me, because we've had some questions along the way, and I've brought it to several people. The adjusted gross income piece. You know, one of the amendments that came up that sounded good when people first came in and brought it to me, and I got a list of those in your packet. Wanted to change the definition of adjusted gross income. Once we thought about it, essentially you have the opportunity to game the system, no pun intended, to actually limit the number of dollars that are going into our Hope Scholarship. So I'm going to ask Chris here to explain what adjusted gross income means in the bill.
So thank you, members, for your time. Like you said, my name is Chris Hopper, and I work with Taylor English Decisions, and we represent the Georgia Professional Sports Integrity Alliance. On lines 221, you'll see the definition of adjusted gross income in the bill. It's simpler than it seems. What it is the total bets placed to a licensee minus with the licensee, the amount paid out to the winners. So as simple as that sounds, I could do a hypo of, with Tennessee, they just had 130 million in their first month. So if we make a couple assumptions, like they pay out winnings of 90% of that, they would be left with 13 million that wasn't paid out to winners. And then the state would tax that 13 million. So in that hypothetical, there'd be 2.08 million at a 16% tax rate. I know we've changed it to 14%, but my numbers here are 16%, so I apologize. So over the annual, that'd be about 24 million. If anyone has any specific questions on the definition or how we came to the AGI, I'm sorry, Representative Powelson.
So the state pays out the bets
Representative Houston, what's your microphone number?
My microphone number is 21. Turned off.
Okay.
Is
you're
it
on.
on?
Yes, ma'am.
I had a question about what really adjusted gross income meant.
Yes, ma'am.
And when I read on track 221 to 223, so you deduct, so the state is paying for the loss of the bet, whoever, whatever they have to pay out.
No, ma'am. So
And that's what it
the
says.
bettors would spend their money with the operators, the licensees. The licensees, the DraftKings of the world, they would pay out money to the winners.
They'd pay out the money to the winners, but
And then
in
what's
essence,
remaining,
we would just get what they didn't pay out,
correct, yes, ma'am,
a percentage.
a percentage.
Well, why not get a lesser percent and rather than just take the 10% of the whole thing instead of 16?
A lesser trying to follow your question. Are you
Well,
asking
I
to
just
lower
don't
the
see- I don't
tax
see-
rate?
It looks like that would be an expense, what you had to pay out for the losers would be an expense.
I'm
if
a little
I'm-
stumped on the question.
That's
I
not an
apologize.
expense of doing business, is paying for your losses.
Right, so that, yes, when I'm saying when they pay out their winnings, that's winnings and losses. So once they've paid out at the end of the day, when DraftKings has squared up on their handle, the remainder that they haven't paid out, that number would be what the state taxes.
Okay,
I
right.
apologize if I worded that
okay.
wrong.
Now I understand. Thank you.
Yes.
I want to make it sure.
And then to
clear.
tack on to that, when it comes to the Georgia Lottery Corporation,
But no salaries, no expenses, or anything is included that,
correct, where Georgia Lottery Corporation could cover those fees would be in the annual fees that the different licensees pay each year.
okay,
So it's 900,000 per year for the annual license with a $50,000 application.
okay, it's 900,
900,000 for an annual license fee,
Okay. okay,
and then 50,000 for the application fee. And that gets
Okay.
credited towards your larger 900,000
okay.
if you're successful in your application.
All right. How many vendors do you have?
I don't know that number. I know that we're saying that at a minimum, we would go for 6.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Other questions?
All right. Representative Mallow.
Thank you, Chairman. Question for you, Chairman. Under law, the Georgia Lottery is supposed to contribute as nearly as practical 35% of its funds. So we know that we've not contributed 35%. So by expanding this into the Georgia Lottery, will we then get to the 35% going back to lottery for pre-K funding and education?
Not on this bill. This bill, the margins are smaller. So we're dictating right up front what our take is going to be, and it's going to be about 14%. Tennessee does 20%. So we're starting at this point. I think the Senate bill is at 10%, but keep in mind the margins on these things are much, much smaller. So, we'll talk about what's behind door number 2 a little bit later, which has a larger percentage. But these are small percentage numbers that I believe is reasonable.
If I may.
Okay.
So Chairman, would the proceeds, essentially, would the lottery receive a profit from this? Would the lottery receive a profit? And if so, my question is, would then the lottery fully fund the 35% for education as it's allowed?
No, and we had a Senate bill that came through that tried to force that issue on what we were already getting, which is down in the 20s. If you might recall, it was soundly defeated. If y'all might remember, it lit up the red board. So, and the question then becomes is if we increase the percentage to the point that sales go down, and I believe Texas tried that, it was, they found out that as you increase the percentage payouts or the percentage into the lottery, then you lose the amount of the number of bettors, if you will. So it's a trade-off. And again, we tried that maybe, I want to say 3 years ago, and members can have to remind me, but that bill was a Senate bill and it was soundly defeated.
Thank you. Chairman Stevens, we have a question from Representative Robichaud, who is on Zoom, and she wants to know, does this bill include minor league teams since they are professional teams?
It does not. It only includes the 4 professional teams that are listed, and does not include minor league teams.
Okay. And Representative Yurda, I believe you have your microphone on.
Excuse me, I
No.
was just corrected. It does. So if they're associated with those 4 teams and the minor league teams are minor league teams are the 4 teams that were here, I was just corrected. That is true.
All right. Representative Nix, you had a question?
I think he's number 8.
You can hear me?
Mhm.
Okay. Chairman Stevens is a good friend of mine, and he knows that I agree with him on most things, but disagree with him on this. I asked him before if I might just make a brief statement instead of asking a bunch of questions and speaking. He has agreed to that. So let me just make a couple of quick statements. First of all, I'm not sure how the sports betting helps the team revenues. In fact, I'm somewhat concerned because the biggest sports scandals in history have been because of gambling. All we have to do is look at the 1919 Chicago Cubs, Pete Rose, the NBA referee who got kicked out, Paul Hornung, Golden Boy, got caught gambling. Pete Rozelle, who was the commissioner of the NFL at that time, said this sport has grown so quickly and gained so much of the approval of the American public that the only way it can be hurt is through gambling. So I'm really concerned that the teams will put this much pressure on us to pass this. I think it is, I'm opposed to it from a moral argument. I think the economic argument, there's never enough Hope Scholarship. You can't tell me what fully funds it. It brings a level of corruption to all that touch it. Sports betting, I think, cheapens the competition. The scandals are there.
Chairman Nix, let me ask you, we're having a little issue with our Zoom. They're not hearing your microphone. Is there a way that you could talk through my microphone to finish your comment?
You can't?
I'll just close with this. I think this is just a step down that slippery slope. As he said, there's other things behind door 2. If this was going to be the end, it might be okay, but this is just starting us towards casinos and a lot of other things. And I think that Georgia is one of the best states to do business in right now. I just see no need for us to be able to do this. And I believe that we would be much better off if we just leave this to somebody else. If you want to gamble and you like what they do in Michigan or whatever, just go up there. Thank you.
Point well taken. And before, if I can just respond just a little bit, I want to make sure that the committee understands that the reason that the sports teams are asking for this is for fan participation. The stadiums are empty. They're asking for fan participation solely. So, but point well taken, and we're good friends as always.
Representative Bennett, what number are you? 19.
I don't know how to.
All right, go ahead. You got it. There it is.
Good afternoon. Thank you again, Mr. Chairman, and to my chairman, thank you so much. I just want to know, out of the revenue that's gained going to Hope, do we know the percentage of breakdown between pre-K and actual Hope?
It goes exactly, the question was, do we keep the same percentages the way that it's going today? And the answer is yes. It, all that's handled within the lottery and the current disbursements as it is today. Good question.
All right, Representative Mallow, you have a question and you're number 14. All right, go ahead.
Chairman, I've got a question as relates on line 509. It says the corporation may adopt rules and regulations prescribing the manner in which a licensee may be transferred and a fee for a licensee transfer. How would that be regulated? That would essentially allow the corporation, the lottery corporation, to make the determination on who would be eligible for a license. And to me, it appears that it would circumvent that transferee from having to meet the original criteria established in this legislation.
I'll field it. Thank you for the question. I think it's a good question. I think it would leave space for the Georgia Lottery Corporation to include the same strict restrictions they'll have on the original applicants. I know that right there it doesn't go into it. Later on, it says that they can promulgate rules and regulations regarding that. And I think it's maybe slightly open-ended there, but in the long run, I believe they would enforce all the same initial, because they'll investigate who's looking for the transfer and they'll approve whether or not.
Representative Allen, you had a question?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, the legislation calls out specifically that it'll be no less than 6 licenses, is there a reason why no maximum is included?
Yes, we believe that competition is good. We believe the lottery ought to have every opportunity to vet every single applicant that comes in, and it could be 10 of these folks that do this stuff that are experienced in doing this. And you know, from the get-go, we've had questions about we don't need to be blocking people out from the get-go. And like I say, I'm one of those that believe competition drives prices down and increases the dollars that we put in lottery. Good question.
A follow-up if I can. I think it was asked a different way earlier, but do we know how many of these licensors are out there? How many different organizations could possibly apply at this point? Do we know that number at all?
A lot.
Okay.
Many, and a lot of them, and that's part of it too. There's different levels of experience in this stuff as well. And that should also be given to the Lottery Commission to weed these folks out.
So
there's
they'll be the ones that qualify the applicant.
correct.
All right. Okay. Representative Paris, you're number three. All right, go ahead.
Thank you, Chairman. Chairman, good to see you.
As well.
I've got a couple of things, if so permitted. It states here that you all will be providing resources for individuals with gambling problems or gambling disorders. And I believe it's over on lines, oh gosh, 347 to 351. I'm not really seeing resources. It says that, you know, we'll put up a sign with a toll-free number. Can you elaborate on what those resources would be?
We can, and just so that everybody knows, the lottery already puts about $400,000 a year for gambling addictions and that kind of stuff. So, but the biggest stopgap is to make sure that no one, and I mean no one, can place a bet with a credit card. That's important. You have a stopgap built in whenever you've got a limit on your debit card. But I'll let Chris, if you want to add. Okay. Good. He said he's good with that explanation. So, but the lottery already has a mechanism in place
Okay.
to do that.
So, well, all right, so that's the resource.
Yes.
Okay. We know that gambling and betting, wagering is just taking over Georgia like kudzu. I feel like we really need to have something in place for people that get caught up into this trap, because people are really going broke. I live in Macon-Bibb, and I've seen numbers on the lottery that are just astounding. People spending $4.5 million on coin-operated machines in 1 month is like,
Yeah.
it's problematic to me.
That's
And
a-
we're just opening up the door more at this
Very
point.
good question. I was going to draw your attention to, so on line 347 at the beginning, it says that they will establish and administer a program. So if the program that's already there isn't sufficient for kind of what you're saying, I think what we're looking for here is, since gambling will then be legalized, online mobile sports wagering will be legalized, they then can establish a program and then use the funds that they're getting, those new funds to the GLC, they can use those funds to create those programs. So on
Okay.
top of what is already there, they could use those funds for anything that would be considered actual operating or administrative expenses.
Okay,
I
so
hope
the
that
general
adds
public,
to your question.
right, okay, I thank you, I appreciate your input. So the general public will be aware that these resources and these funds are there.
Yes, and they
some
also
way, somehow.
require that any place, like if you were at a Braves game or a Hawks game, they'll require that they also post things saying, here's a toll-free number. If you have an issue, or if you have a friend who has an issue, this is the line that we would go to.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Chairman.
Representative Hobson, did you have your light on? Okay. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can you all tell me what safeguards are put in place for protecting children protecting anyone under the age of 21?
Yes.
And
whenever-
also with, is there any kind of controls set in place for targeting, younger players?
I'll let Chris answer the targeting thing, but we've got, whenever you apply online, you're going to be required to put your information in there. So you're not going to be able to bet if you're under 21.
But
And-
what information is required?
You got the line numbers?
Wait, so you were asking, Mr. Chairman, which information, how would they find out whether someone's a minor or not?
Correct.
So that would be when you, so you're now we're talking about the wager or the bettor. When you go to create an account with one of these licensees, when they're going through making your account, they're going to verify your age. It's like age, email. I think there's 2 other items. And I already flipped to the second part of the question. I can dig for the first part of that answer if you need.
Okay, well, let's stay on that one for just a moment, if
Okay.
you don't mind. So if someone under the age of 21 were to put in false information, how is that?
They have to
monitored?
verify it. So,
How-
so
how-
that it would
how's
be
it
on the
verified? I guess
licensee
that's the
with
question.
reasonably commercial. I think the standard would be reasonably commercial.
Oh, yeah, the lottery does that.
Okay. All right, and then you have the information regarding the second question?
Could you repeat
Targeting,
the second part of the question? I had
just
it.
how do you safeguard against targeting on minors?
Well, in there, and I'll find it for you in a second.
Okay,
There's a line reference that says that they shall not target minors. So it's specifically laid out that they won't do that. If your question is how would they not target minors, that'll be up to the individual licensees. And then we'll
Okay.
have to regulate to make sure that's not occurring.
and what kind of rules are in place in the event they were to potentially target minors?
I mean, that would be
You would lose-
like you would lose your license and the right to
Okay.
see the license.
Is there any way for them to go in and do a new license application?
You could, but well, I don't want to assume. I would assume that the GLC would then see. So the groups that we're talking about, so with the licensees, it's a $900,000 annual fee.
Mhm.
So there's going to be more than 6, but there's not going to be hundreds of people likely getting licensees because of some of the entry fees. So they'll know. So what I'm saying is there's going to be a limited number of licenses out there. The GLC will easily be able to manage who has a license or had it in the past. So if they've terminated a license in the future, they would know who that company is. Was that the question? Like whether a company would
Yeah, it
free
is,
get their
but,
license
you know,
after?
what's to prevent them
penalty?
from doing, I guess, starting a new license or application, but
Well, and then in the application, so what they would do is when you apply, so your company's trying to get the license, you have to say the different owners all the way down to 5% of who owns it.
okay,
So if you went and applied for a new license, they would get the breakdown of who owns the new company.
okay,
So without multiple shells, there's no way to pull that off.
all right, thank you.
Thank you. Representative Pruitt, you had a question?
Yes, sir. Number 11. Yep, it's working. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question has to do with the applications used for this. And so my understanding is that the applications for the process will be geofenced, meaning that they'll be locked to in the state. So if you're in the state and you're using the application, you can place a wager. And historically, I think you always see that whoever is first to market, it usually gets the lion's share of the market. And so it's hard to displace somebody else once that's been established. How do you go about driving people towards the application that's the legal process away from the illegal process, whatever those applications may be, being that you don't have control over those? Does that make sense?
It sort of does. I'm not going to try to hold myself out as a technology expert on the geofencing portion.
Yeah.
But when it comes to, what was the second part of your question at the end? You were saying,
It just pertains to once you make this legal, and I wanted to place a wager
yes, sir.
on your legal platform, whatever that may be, whoever those 6 companies are that have a license. We've got established already all these companies that are currently using people are wagering off of those. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
So do you have a way of stopping those processes from being used to make them have to use the legal one? Or is it just going to be that I already have such and such app on my phone? I've been wagering on that one for 3 years already.
I think
Why would I go use your new one? That makes sense?
yeah, I mean, I think there'd be the transition from the black market that's occurring.
Yeah.
And then the reason that people would come over to the newly regulated market would be the fact that the safeguards that are in place. You wouldn't have to be scared about the money that you put into your account, that you would actually get the winnings placed like based off of the bets that you've wagered. if your question was actually from one licensee to another, the competition between a FanDuel or a DraftKings, was that what you're asking? Were you talking about from getting people from the illegal market? to the
Exactly. Yeah,
legal market?
that's the aspect of it. Yeah, absolutely.
I would be making the assumption. I guess it was the answer I just gave, but just that you would switch over to the regulated market
Okay.
for the safeguards that are in place.
All right, I have a question from Representative Hogan, and then we'll come to you, Representative Evans.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The people that have the license, can they be from out of state, like from Vegas or wherever?
Yes, sir.
And how much are those license fees going to be?
The same, all the licensees are the same across the board. So it's 50,000 for the application fee. and
50,000
Plus 900,000. each
plus
year.
900,000? And how long is that license good for?
That's an annual license.
1 year? Thank you.
All right, Representative Evans.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I have a question. In talking with attorney friends about this bill, several people have said that they're not sure about the constitutionality of this bill. So could you address that question, please, why you feel like this is constitutional?
So I'm not an attorney, so I don't want to give out anything that would, I don't want to interpret the constitutionality of the bill, but I do know that based upon consultation with legislative counsel, that we believe that the bill would be, that a constitutional amendment would not be required to authorize mobile sports betting in this particular case.
Okay. We have a question from the Zoom.
Mr. Chairman, can I follow up with that?
Yes, sir.
Keep in mind that we have had meetings with the Lottery Commission. We believe that they can, it's just another game that you can do sports betting in some form today. You can do scratch offs, and then it would be no different than what we do today when you go in the convenience store and buy one. So we believe that they could do that, but we were told that they need direction. So this is the direction.
Thank you. We have a question from Zoom from Representative Bernot. Wants to know, what is the percentage of minority contracts?
That's not in the bill. It's as far as we know, those are all that's worked out between the lottery and the contractors. So none of that's contemplated in this bill, even though we'll be talking about what's behind door number 2, and that is part of that.
Okay. Representative Dukes, you had a question.
You're 18?
Okay.
Maybe you addressed some of these questions before I got here, but what percentage of the Georgia lottery funds now, of the money that is spent, goes directly to the lottery treasury, the way it's situated?
Is it 22%? I'm sorry? It's supposed to be in the 30s.
Yeah, I thought it was in the 30s, because basically 52% is supposed to go towards the winnings, and the other, I think 15% goes towards administration, and the rest goes towards the lottery itself.
23% should be the number.
Is it 23?
Yeah.
Okay.
And as far as administration, before, as you mentioned that just a minute, let me interrupt you just a second. There was some question about the adjusted gross income, that the fees, the salary, all of that stuff comes out of their fee, the $1 million fee to participate. So none of that's going to be involved in what the lottery gets to go to our education fund.
Okay. And under this form of wagering, what percentage of the total amount goes towards the lottery?
14%.
14%.
Well, the original bill had 16. This one is 14%. Your
Okay.
substitute.
Thank you, Representative Sains.
This is actually a follow-up correlated to the HOPE fund. I know that this doesn't fully fund HOPE, and that's easy to put in numbers of it being a small amount, but could you tell the committee how many students this amount added into HOPE would likely get a HOPE scholarship from this if we added this into the HOPE revenue?
Let me answer it this way. Currently HOPE is about $1 billion with a B. And as you might know, whenever this first came about in the 90s, Zell Miller, we had about an $8 million population in Georgia. Today, we're pushing 11. So we're not keeping up with the numbers as our population's growing. Currently, there's about a $300 million hole. This is going to produce about 42 million. So it will not fill the hole completely, but it will help.
All right, and one more question from Zoom, from Representative Robichaux wants to know, do you know that when someone establishes their account, do they have to enter information in regards to tax withholding payment, which is then verified? You want me to repeat the question?
I heard the question.
Okay.
Off the top of my head, I don't know if I have the answer to that. I know there's a couple items that are listed within the bill. In a second, I could get the line item, but I'm not sure about the tax withholdings.
Okay.
The only thing that I can think of, Mr. Chairman, is whenever you go into apply, they have to verify your age.
Representative Paris.
Yes, sir. Thank you again, Chairman. You said needs-based. I'm over here. You
Needs-
talked about part of this money is going to needs-based.
No, ma'am, that's in another bill. That's in the big bill.
In the big bill.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Oh, I'm looking over here. I'm trying to, and you know what? This is the best thing about mask. You don't know who's talking. So I apologize. I'm trying to follow the eyes.
It's me, man. It's me. I have a name.
This follows the exact same mechanism as we do with the lottery today. The 14% goes directly to the lottery and is distributed throughout. But there's, in this particular bill, because it's so small, the revenue compared to what we need, this one just follows the current mechanism.
Yeah,
But
so
we'll have a conversation next week about what you're asking about.
it's really important to me because every time I see that huge number on
Yes,
the
ma'am.
billboards, I know that poor people made that number happen. So it's really important that we make sure a lot of this money is
Yeah, door number
provided
2 is
for.
coming.
Yes, sir. All right. I'm looking forward to it.
All right, asking some good questions. And Representative Gunner, you have a question that you would like to ask.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Stevens, and I apologize for being late in reading this bill. On lines 412 and 419, there's a use of a legal standard, clear and convincing evidence in the application process. Who administers that? How is that used in the application process? Because it's not before a judicial body of any kind that I'm aware of, at least in my reading of this.
It's just current language with the lottery too. If you're a vendor, they, believe me, they check you out. So
Okay.
it's in current language.
Okay, well, all right. I have is back toward the back of the bill. It would be, let's see, lines 842 and 43, and also 851 through 856. Maybe I'm not understanding how that process works either. It's where the corporation, the lottery corporation, investigates an individual for illegal wagering. That seems to me to be within the purview of district attorney, not corporation.
The lottery does it today.
They,
With all their vendors. They have attorneys.
Yes, sir.
Did that answer?
process, is that what I'm reading?
I'm assuming. I don't know. I'll research that and get a deeper answer back to you on that
Okay.
specific question.
Representative,
Though that's the current mechanism. So
Representative Bonner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a question I had regarding, it's page 19, starting on line 460. This is in regards to a temporary license being issued. I just want to make sure on line 465, am I reading that correctly to say that if one of these businesses has paid a fee in another state, they would not have to pay the fee in Georgia for a temporary license?
I hear the voice. I don't see the person. I just want to show. Oh, I apologize. I see now. So temporary licenses comes up, or if you have a license in another jurisdiction. If you have a license in another jurisdiction, that comes up twice in the bill. One would be when you're doing your initial application, you would disclose that saying, I'm a lawful license holder in another jurisdiction. If so, you have to provide a letter of support from that jurisdiction, from whatever their governing body would be. So whatever their lottery corporation in that state would be. The lines you pointed out is a temporary license where if we pass this and it goes, this will help speed up the process in which we can get mobile sports betting active in the state. So instead of, I think when you submit your application, it's a 90-day period you have before they would tell you whether or not you are awarded the license. This would allow a quicker, shorter time for temporary licenses to be issued to a maximum of 2-year length. And then if your application is out there and it's awarded, then that 2-year temporary license goes away, and now you're just holding the Georgia license at that point.
Okay, you kind of danced around the answer though. Did they pay the fee or not?
Oh yeah, yes. I apologize. I didn't hear that part of the question. Yes, sir.
Okay. So they're coming in.
So for a temporary license, you would pay the same way. You would still submit your application, but then you would also pay for the temporary license your annual fee.
So the only difference is the amount of time
Correct.
The amount of time
At the
from
beginning when the program starts.
All right. So just so understand, the only difference is the amount of time from application to actually being open for business in Georgia.
Correct. Yes, sir.
Okay.
All right, Representative Gravely, you had a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Forgive me, I was on Zoom and ran over here. My question is, we go ahead. Zoomed over. My question is the opening statement on some of the notes we have in our blue folder. It says today in Georgia, an estimated 2.2 million residents place 4.8 billion in illegal sports wagers with online offshore sports books every year. How are we coming up with that $4.8 billion? How are we tracking that, or what mechanisms are we using to
It's a
come
black
up with
market.
that number?
I understand the question. It's a black market, but I want to say that those numbers came from the American Gaming Association, is where those projections came from.
For Georgia.
For Georgia.
Okay, thank you.
I want to say they do every 8 years, they do a study on that, and it does every state plus the national numbers.
Representative Williams, did you have a question?
I just wanted to kind of clarify on 34, when we talk about the fines from 848 down to about 856. Years ago, when I made a living, the transportation department or the Medicaid department gave us the authority. First, they took it and told us what the fines were. Forget due process. If you're X number of minutes late, it's going to cost you $1,000. If you're a day late, it's going to cost you 10. And of course, we passed it on. So it was no deliberation. When you sign your contract, you understand these are the fines that you're subject to if you commit the offense. And we did it every day. Some folk paid more fines than they made money, but I don't know where they were making it from.
All right, Chairman Parrish.
Mr. Chairman, excuse me, would it just be a fair statement to say, basically what you're attempting to do with this legislation is give the Lottery Corporation an additional tool to work with to generate more funds to put into the lottery program to provide more Hope scholarships?
I wish I'd said that myself. Very well put. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Bonner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I'm sorry if I don't see this in the legislation, but is there anything that prohibits those that actually participate in these professional sports to?
Yes, let me get that for you.
So that's going to be on line 478. That's where you're going to start the whole persons ineligible to obtain a license. And quickly, not that this is detailed, but corporation members and employees of the vendors, professional sports teams and their affiliates, any pro or Olympics coaches or players, governing bodies of the teams, NBAs, the employees, that is, certain convicted criminals and anyone who would have the ability to affect the outcomes of a sporting event or affect the integrity of sports wagering.
And who would adjudicate whether or not someone had the ability to directly affect the outcome of a sporting event?
The Lottery Corporation.
Thank you.
Representative Mallow.
Chairman, I've got one last question for you. I just want to make sure the revenue is here. When I look at the section talking about the temporary licensing, but there's no dollar amount that talks about the temporary license, and the language in the original application says the application fee of $50,000 and an annual licensing fee in the amount of $900,000. Talks about an annual license, but there's no language that references temporary and annual being the same thing.
It's the same, and it's just the time difference, the temporary. Am I correct?
Well, it says the corporation shall review and approve or deny an application for a license not more than 90 days after receipt of an application. And so then it moves to the language to talk about a temporary license, and you have 2 years under a temporary license, but this says that they'll approve or deny within 90 days.
Correct. And on line 468, if you look there, that's where it just says that if you have that issued, so the temporary licenses are for people who have a license in another jurisdiction. So then you would have to see that they have paid and required the licensing fee by the CEO who's authorizing them for that temporary license. Does that cover the fee portion you're asking about?
So again, it says the wagering pursuant to this article under temporary license for a period of 2 years until final determination. So what I'm looking for is, can a person operate under this temporary license without paying the annual fee?
No.
To Georgia, to the state of Georgia?
No, they must pay it to the state of Georgia.
Are we going to make that language explicit?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Representative Hobson, did you have a question?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Quick question for you. You stated that there's a $42 million increase there could potentially be a $42 million increase. How is that number derived? And then also, what's the difference between what kind of deficit is there currently that we would be trying to fulfill?
I said a little earlier, we've got a $300 million hole to fully fund Hope. But this 42 million was at a tax rate of 10% calculated. We're going to be asking for 14, so it'll be more. So this is just a conservative number as we're trying to hit that target, because we don't know. Nobody dreamed that Tennessee was going to bust out of the gates as they did at $100 million plus the first month with sales. So, this is kind of a stab at it. I don't anticipate that 14% will be the number that we wind up, but I hope that we'll stay with it with this bill, because we're going to have to negotiate with the Senate. Their bill had 10%, so we've got some wiggle room.
Okay.
All right, I'm going to entertain a few more questions, and then I'll be glad to entertain a motion. Representative Evans, you are number 21, 22.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I'm very grateful to be on this committee, and I look forward to working with you. And I have submitted an amendment, and I wondered what the process will be under your leadership for considering amendments to this bill.
Very good question. In your package, you'll see some of the amendments that we have gotten submitted so far. There's another one that I got today that will also go in the packet. As this goes along the process, we need to vet these amendments, because some of these amendments that you look in the back of your folder, I believe have some unintended consequences, and it has to do with adjusted gross income. We need to make sure that the maximum dollars we can get, that there's no games played, no pun intended, that some of these amendments don't negatively affect the numbers that we're expecting to get to the lottery. So I would ask you to move this bill out, and that we vet these things with the Falcons, the Braves, the Hawks, and the soccer team. And let's make sure that there's I can never remember their name. United, there we go. And they're a great team, by the way. They're packed all the time. But we need to vet these amendments so that there's not any unintended consequences. And I like your amendment, by the way. But some of these amendments may have some problems. But as we move this thing along the process and we get it out of the House and into the Senate, these things are going to stay in the packet as we move it along. And if they're okay, if we vet these things within the next few days and comes back and there's no issues, there's some good amendments in there, then we ought to take them up. But this is a long process to get through the House and get through the Senate. But yours is, I got yours today, I believe. So we'll need to add that to the packet.
Yeah, and I have looked in our packet. I don't think the amendments are in our packet today.
Okay.
Yeah.
Forgive me, they're not in your packet. I will get those to each member there. We left them on my desk. There's about 6 amendments so far, and I got yours today. So I'll make sure that all members get that. But for me, the final word should come down to the 4 teams that are asking to support this. And if they see some problems, if the lottery sees some problems, if Ledge Council sees some problems with these amendments, then we need to take that into consideration. But I saw yours.
All right, we have a question from Representative Nix.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, just a quick observation. Been some great questions. Y'all have given us some great answers, but I've always heard that the Board of Regents is the 4th branch of government. I believe the Lottery Corporation may be approaching, they're at least 5th and must be approaching 4th with all the power we're giving them to interpret everything. So sounds like we've got a branch of government there or a branch that's really getting big to interpret all this. Thank you.
Thank you. And of course, there was some conversation about creating a gaming commission, but that throws another wrinkle in what a process that we've already got, but it's a very good point.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I would be happy to entertain a motion at this time if we have one. I don't see one, though. Representative Williams, your number, what number are you? 17. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, at the appropriate time, I'd like to offer a motion.
All right, go ahead.
I move that we pass out the substitute to HB 86 for the due pass.
All right, I have a motion, and do I hear a second? And that is on the original bill, which is House Bill 86 LC 364498. Since this is a substitute that we're working off of, we need that motion and second, which we've just received on the original bill. And is there any further discussion at this time before we move on to the substitute? Representative Evans, you're 21, 2? Yes.
Yes, thank you so much. So at this time, if we are prepared to vote on this bill, I would like to communicate my strong feelings that, to echo what Representative Paris said, that the proceeds from this go to benefit families with a median income, with of less than 50% of the median income of the state. It is generally, I mean, this is a new source of revenue. We know we have a need for this type of funding to help our students across Georgia to attend secondary school. And the way that this could be done would be working with Hope, and it can be done. Legislative Council has looked at this. So I want to communicate my strong passion to all of my committee members that I hope we will consider this new source of funding for scholarship, tuitions, loans, and grants for our families that are at the median income, 50% or less in the state.
Thank you. If there's no further discussion, I would entertain a motion and a second on LC 364551S, which is what we've been working off of today. And Representative Sains.
Based on the will of the chair, I'd like to make a motion to substitute the current bill with the substitute.
I have a motion. Do I hear a second? Second. All right, because we have folks on Zoom and folks in person, we are going to go through a roll call vote per our rules. And so at this time, I'll go down through the list of members. And when I call your name, if you'll just indicate your vote, starting with Representative Allen. Representative Blackman, I don't believe he's with us today. Representative Evans. Representative Gunner. Representative Hogan. Representative Houston. Representative Mallow. Representative Neal.
Yes.
Representative Parrish. Representative Robichaud.
Yes.
Representative Yurda. Representative Sains. Representative Belton. Representative Bonner. Representative Gravely. Representative Dempsey.
Yes.
Representative Nix.
Abstain. Did you hear me?
I did, Representative Robinson.
What?
Representative Metz, I'm sorry, you're on Zoom. I haven't gotten to you yet. We're going to.
It's Marie Robinson Metz, and I abstain.
Okay, thank you. Duly noted. Representative Nix, I don't know that we. Okay. Representative Pruitt. Representative Smith. Representative Bennett. Representative Bernot.
Yes.
Representative Dukes. I think he might have left. Representative Green. Representative Hitchens. I didn't. Representative Hobson. Representative Lopez.
Yes.
Representative Metz, I know you spoke a minute ago, but just again, you abstain.
Yes, abstain.
Representative Paris. Representative Rhodes is not here, and then Representative Williams.
Yes.
All right. Okay, with that, we have passed House Bill 86 LC 364551S. And Mr. Chairman, you can proceed as normal.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If it's okay with you, I'll do it from here. I just want to thank the committee for your indulgence with this bill as we continue to add money to the lottery. Thank you. We can be adjourned.
Thank you.